Greetings, salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC For Your Consideration Movie Talk for movie fans. My name is John Campia. I am the senior editor of AMC Movie News. I'm so glad to have you guys here with us. And this is a brand new thing for us that we're trying here at AMC. We love talking movies. And in talking about movies, we love to talk about movies with other movie fans, obviously. And that's what we're doing here today. We're going to talk a whole bunch of topics that come up. And we're so glad that you guys have decided to join us. If you are watching us right now on our Ustream channel, which I think most of you guys are right now, go ahead and use the social stream tab that you see to the right of your screen. And you can chat in there. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat board. We're going to have a part of the show a little bit later on where we get to take your questions and your comments and hear what you guys have to say about the stuff that we are talking about. Now, all that being aside, today I am joined by a fantastic panel of people who are going to help us talk about these movies. First of all, sitting over there, well, actually, they're all sitting over there. She is the West Coast editor of Movieline.com. She is just a fabulous, wonderful person. You can find her on Twitter at Jen Yamato. She is Miss Jen Yamato. Jen, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, John.
Thanks so much for being here. You got here all right today?
I did. All the way to Burbank, California.
Yes, and I should mention here that we are actually broadcasting this live from the beautiful AMC 16 in Burbank, California. Thank you so much for joining us. Sitting next to Jen, she is written for about every single major website out there, co-host with Stan Lee on Cocktails for Stan, and she just had her appendix taken out just a couple of days ago. We are so glad to be joined by Miss Jenna Busch. Jenna, how you doing?
I am much better now, thank you.
And you can find Jenna at jennabusch.com. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Sitting next to Jenna, he is a film critic for the wonderful site JoeBlow.com and just one of the coolest guys around, sporting the best beard art in the room right now. He is known around these parts as Jimmy O. You can find him on Twitter at Jimmy to the O, Mr. James Oster. James, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to point out that in no way, shape, or form did I intentionally arrange it that everybody on this panel today, including myself, would have their first name starting with the letter J. So we got Jen, Jenna, James, and John, and that was completely by accident. Hey, listen. Let's jump into it. We got a few topics here we're going to talk about. We're going to take a short break a little bit later, but for now, let's get into the main topic of the day, or at least the first of the three main topics today. Christopher Nolan's final film in the Batman franchise, The Dark Knight Rises, of course, has already been out. It's been in theaters for some time now. All three of the films have been, I think it's pretty much universally accepted that these are good films. These are really good films. But it begs the question, whenever you get a trilogy that all three films have at least been very good, the question comes up, where does this trilogy, where does this these series of films line up in terms of greatest films of all time? So we're looking at the Batman Begins, we're looking at Dark Knight, and we're looking at The Dark Knight Rises. All three films have now been released in theaters, so let's ask the question. In terms of the greatest trilogies of all time, Jenna, let's start with you.
All right.
Where does the Christopher Nolan Batman franchise rank?
Well, I'm going to put this underneath Star Wars and Lord of the Rings because I'm just that nerdy. I'm going to put it above Godfather.
Really?
Yes, because of the third film.
Okay.
Because of the third film. I think it's pretty well accepted that the third Godfather film is just not as good as the first two. But for me, it's Star Wars still has that nostalgic feeling for me, and I love it so much that I don't think I could really put anything in front of that. And Lord of the Rings, it's still one of my favorites of all time.
Understandable. And before we go to you, we asked our readers on Facebook the other day what they thought about this, and we got some really cool answers that came in. First of all, Jonathan Cruz says, the Dark Knight trilogy was an excellent three-part story, but there's so many classic trilogies, I wouldn't know how to rate it, but I do think it's the best comic book trilogy yet. I won't dispute that.
I have to agree with that.
Carl C. wrote, Nolan's is the greatest trilogy ever. Sorry, Star Wars. Sorry, Lord of the Rings, but Batman is king.
No.
And Dave Melendez wrote, right up there. I'd like the series take on a comic book. I hope it inspires some younger people to read Frank Miller's Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Returns. I second that. And the seeds are there. So, Jimmy, let's go over to you.
Well,
where does this rank? Where does this rank in the all-time trilogy?
I have to agree with Jenna here. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I think they're just really almost near perfect movies. So, yes, that is the top for me. Star Wars. Wow, those last 3 movies kind of killed me a little bit. So it kind of knocked it down.
Oh, I'm pretending those 3 don't exist.
Yeah, we already had the discussion about
original
Jar Jar.
trilogy.
The original trilogy, I think would. But I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Nolan's Batman slightly over that.
I still love you.
That's okay.
Jen, how about you?
Well, look, the Batman trilogy is good, mostly because all 3 installments together feel so much of a piece. This does feel like one story that Chris Nolan is telling, and quite well. Although I have a lot of issues with The Dark Knight Rises. I'm sorry, you guys. A lot. So for me, Dark Knight Rises makes Nolan's Batman trilogy fall into that realm of trilogies that were mostly good but sort of petered out at the end. The Godfather being one, Matrix being another.
Oh, yeah.
Still, given that, I like the Back to the Future trilogy, even though some might argue that the same fate befell that trilogy. Indiana Jones. But I do agree with you guys. Star Wars has to be the best still, I think.
It's so curious. You know, I think as a society, this comes with movies, this comes with sports, this comes with television, we tend to instantly grab on to what was most recent. For me, okay, look, I love the Batman films. I think we're in order of least to greatest. I think we've got Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, and The Dark Knight. I think The Dark Knight was the best of trilogy. And they're all great. But the thing is, there are so many great trilogies, you know? And so I mean, Jenna, you and I talked about this once. I would actually have to put the Batman trilogy, as wonderful as it is, I put it in the top 5, but I put it in 5th. I mean, okay, first of all, you got to put it behind Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I think it's won over 20 Oscars, the 3 films combined, including, you know, the last film, The Return of the King, won a record 11 Oscars, won every single category it was nominated in. All 3 films were nominated for Best Picture. Star Wars, the original trilogy, we're 30 years later, and everybody still knows Star Wars. Star Wars didn't just change movies, it changed our culture. I mean, it had such an impact on that. I would put Godfather, and I know we all dump on Godfather Part 3. But,
as we should.
But it was nominated for Best Picture, and it's almost like Jar Jar Binks. You take Coppola out. You take her out of the film, and it's almost a masterpiece again. So once again, you got the Godfather films, all 3 nominated for Best Picture. So that's 3, and I would put Toy Story.
Toy Story for sure.
Do love Toy Story.
I would have to put Toy Story above it. Because, I mean, those are 3 masterpieces. And when you look at The Dark Knight Rises, none of them have been nominated for Best Picture. None of them, I don't know if it's won any awards. It might have won for sound. Guys in the chat board, you can correct me if I'm wrong there about whether or not it's actually won any Academy Awards. But
well, Heath Ledger, of course.
You mean as a picture?
Oh, well, yeah,
as a
Heath
picture,
Ledger,
though.
which one of the best. But I think I would agree with everybody else who said that it's probably the best comic book trilogy of all time, and I would put it in the top 5. I would put it above Indiana Jones personally. I would put it above Matrix. I would put it above Back to the Future, but that's just me.
I will also say I feel like in discussions like these, especially online, like right now in the glowing aftermath of Dark Knight Rises coming out, people are inclined to forget about things like Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy,
Yeah.
Or the Colors trilogy, things like that. But those are also trilogies that are also excellent and should be named when you're talking about the best of all time.
I would also have to add Park Chan-wook's Vengeance trilogy.
Right.
That, in fact, now that I think about that, I would put that above the...
I still remember the first time I saw Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. I'm like, what am I watching?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Guys,
perfect.
let us not forget what the Mighty Ducks franchise gave us.
Well, I mean, obviously.
And Three Ninjas.
And Rush Hour.
Thank you.
Rush Hour, which we will get to in a little bit, actually.
Don't forget Sleepaway Camp.
Okay,
I'm just going to keep talking about Star Wars.
Let's move on to topic number 2 here, which we were just actually going over a little bit earlier. At Comic-Con, Peter Jackson. Now, we all know that Peter Jackson has the Hobbit film coming out at Christmas this year. He also has a second Hobbit film coming out next year. When we are at Comic-Con, Peter Jackson started to suggest that he believes that there is enough source material available to him in the appendices that not only J.R.R. Tolkien, but some of his descendants also wrote, to do a third film. Thus started some discussions with the studio, and there was a real possibility, he said, that we could do The Hobbit in 3 films as opposed to 2. Now, of course, in one sense, this seems really odd because the Lord of the Rings books, The Hobbit, turning all 3 of them into trilogies. And we just heard this morning that Peter Jackson has indeed confirmed they are going to do, you heard it here first, folks, probably, that they are going to do 3 Hobbit films. So there is going to be a 3rd Hobbit film coming out. Jimmy, let's start with you. Should they do this? Should they turn The Hobbit into 3 films?
I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, as we've figured out. But even I'm skeptical. The idea of stretching the story out to three films is questionable. But I like the idea that it is Peter Jackson. I do somewhat trust what he has to say. I think he's got a point. I think, maybe he's going to give us something that we don't expect. And I guess it's one I'm skeptical, but I'm hoping for the best, basically.
Jenna, what about you?
I'm selfishly thrilled, honestly. Here's the thing. I'm one of those nerds who's read the Silmarillion and all of that, and everything that's been done in this world. So for me, I've read all the appendices. I love them. I love the idea of it. But I don't know if he can add in enough things. I mean, because if he's already shot the full story, what is he going to do? Throw in extra little bits? It doesn't seem to make much sense. I'm happy because I want to see. If you read books like I do, you want to read everything about the book and then go to Wikipedia and find out little nuggets that you didn't know and all of that. So I think for the super nerds like me, it'll be fun, but I don't know if it's really the best idea overall.
Jen?
I think if the decision to turn 2 Hobbit films into 3 had come from the studio, if that was like a studio press release, people would be way more cynical. But the fact that it comes from Peter Jackson, who we know obviously has a lot of love for these books and this franchise, it does give me a little bit more hope. But I do wonder how they're going to do it. I mean, at Comic-Con, Jackson spoke about all of the wealth of material in the appendices. How much of those were stories that were never seen, off-screen happenings, off-screen character development. So I wonder how he's going to do it. Is he going to scrap his structure that he had in place for 2 films, break it apart, see what he has, film everything he wants to film, and then reassemble it, I guess? I don't know. Because he does not have the rights to the Silmarillion, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that the Tolkien estate does not want to give him rights to that.
Yep.
So I'm very curious. I don't know, but I feel like this franchise is one that fans love, and I mean, I feel like it's a good thing for fans.
You know what? The funny thing is, when I first heard him talking about possibly doing a 3rd film, I thought original material, taking some of the appendices stuff that maybe most common fans aren't aware of and crafting a 3rd film post-Smaug. But then we're reading this morning when they announced that he is indeed going to do a 3rd film, that one of the titles could be like the Demise of Smaug or something like that. But they were throwing around these titles that clearly suggested ending the 3rd Hobbit film with the end of the Hobbit book. And that makes me sit back and go, well, wait a minute. Where are they in the process of having the 2nd film ready? Are they going to tear up everything they've done? The first film, how many changes do they have to make to the first film, which is coming in just a few months, to be able to stretch out that last bit of stuff? Because I'm concerned. But I think like you, Jen, I trust in Peter Jackson when it comes to Lord of the Rings films. I think he's earned that trust. And if he thinks there's enough material there to do a 3rd film, then let's see it. And you know what? I can't help but wonder if there was a part of this coming from Warner Brothers, because they know if they turn The Hobbit into 5 films, each one is guaranteed to make a minimum $300 million, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sure some of it came from there, but you're right. It is kind of interesting seeing that this is really coming at Peter Jackson's behest, that he wants to see this done. We got to move on to the 3rd topic here. Talking about, fantasy stuff. And Peter Jackson, with his Lord of the Rings films, opened up the realm of fantasy for filmmakers all over the place. One of the most popular, long-living video games of all time, the World of Warcraft.
I play.
Yeah, I know, Jen. You and I play. Granted, I haven't played in a while. I still have my undead mage at a level 60.
Human Retribution Paladin.
Level.
So
I don't want to say.
it was
too high. You
announced
guys won't be able to handle
a
it.
long time ago that director Sam Raimi, most popular for his Evil Dead films and, of course, the Spider-Man trilogy that he did. Notice none of us mentioned the Spider-Man trilogy earlier, but that he had taken on World of Warcraft, and he was going to be developing World of Warcraft into a full-length feature film. This past week, Sam Raimi, now we haven't heard anything happening over it. We haven't heard what's been going on with it, and Sam Raimi confirmed earlier last week that indeed he's off. He's no longer on the World of Warcraft project, this seemingly goldmine at one time potential film franchise. The question is, and Jen, we're going to start with you in this one. With the World of Warcraft now, let's face it, it's in its waning years. It's been around, I think, for 9 years now. It's not as popular as it used to be. The film property has been sitting dormant for a while. Can they still do a World of Warcraft movie now that Sam Raimi's moved on?
I feel like they still will do one because they want that money, and it's an established property that's rife for adaptation just because of the wealth of characters and story possibilities. It almost helps, I think, that to a certain degree that there is no specific one story to Warcraft. In that way, a filmmaker could pick and choose and create their own narrative. But at the same time, that seems to have been the problem that Raimi got hung up on. At one point, he talked about having a 40-page document of story ideas and character ideas, and that they were sifting through all the characters and potential directions just to figure out their angle. And then he took Oz, and Warcraft went away. So I think it probably will be done because I am that cynical. I don't think it will be done well unless it has a real visionary filmmaker behind it. And I could see it being done really interestingly with somebody like in the style of like Avatar or something like that. The world has a lot of potential. That said, I did lose a boyfriend in college to Warcraft. So, I wouldn't be too sad if it didn't happen.
Now, before we go into Jenna, once again, we asked our followers on Facebook what they thought about the whole World of Warcraft movie. Should they go on without Sam Raimi? And we got some really interesting responses. Here are a couple of them. Deborah wrote, I can't see a World of Warcraft being made into a good movie. There is no one main character, and trying to make one for a movie could ruin the individuality of the game, since the game is different for every person that plays. Melissa Zimmerman wrote, World of Warcraft should stay a game. And Nick Jones wrote, I can see why a WoW movie would be a bitch to make, but there's no main character or storyline because the game is endless. Which is true. I mean, it is an endless game. It doesn't end with it. So having said that, you know what? I'm going to save Jenna for last. Jamie, let's go on to you. We're talking about video game properties here. A game like World of Warcraft.
I'm a nerd.
Can they still make a World of Warcraft movie this late in the game with Sam Raimi gone?
You know what I think would be interesting if they and no one will do this because God forbid it's risky. I would love to see some up and coming director do a low budget, maybe a $50-60 million movie, and do something really just dirty and gritty, and try and make it small, and try and give make a if you have a great
action?
Yeah, absolutely, and it can be done. Instead of making this a $200-300 million project, let's make an original story out of it. Let's try and give it some life, include the fans in some way, and make something really special instead of just whoring it out and making some kind of big budget monster epic like Battleship.
Oh, excuse me.
But I mean, can it be said though that with a film, not with a film, but with a video game property like World of Warcraft, one of the almost characters of World of Warcraft is the vastness of the world that it inhabits is the diversity of the different types of creatures and realms and all that kind of stuff. It's just something that I keep in mind about it. Jenna, you are an avid World of Warcraft player.
Yes.
Your thoughts on this?
Okay, so here I've been very quiet. All right, so there are characters and there is lore, and that's the thing that I think they'd be smart to do, is not just pick a bunch of characters and have them travel or fight some big evil, but I mean, there definitely are specific characters. There's books. I've read every one of them. There's Arthas we could talk about. There's so many different historical things that happen in the world that it would be so easy to take one of those storylines and do it. I think it needs to be a good director, as Jen said. It could be gritty, as Jimmy said, but I think you have to start with a storyline like that, because I think if you try to take a character and you try to have adventurers meet up in a group and all of that, you are going to lose it. It's just going to be nebulous. People whoever's character, like if the Blood Elves are not in it, or it'll be Horde or Alliance or whatever. I mean, I think then you'll have half the fans mad or whatever, But I think the really important thing is to take an established historical storyline in the game and do that as a story.
I think if you're going to do that, wouldn't you have to go with the Lich King?
You could, yeah. That's what I'm thinking. The Lich King might work.
Yeah, that would probably be the one that you'd have to follow along.
Yeah, but there's so many.
Oh yeah, there are now, and it's true what some of the people on Facebook were saying, that there is no one central character to the World of Warcraft games. But you see, that's almost an advantage the way I see it, is because it gives a really good filmmaker the open playground to work within this context, maybe within the context of the Lich King storyline, to create character and do all that stuff while inhabiting being true to the world. I think there's a lot of potential. I would still line up 5 years from now to be the first in line to see a World of Warcraft movie.
I will beat you there.
Yeah, done by the right director, who, some people have mentioned Guillermo del Toro would make a marvelous World of Warcraft
Guillermo,
movie.
please do it. Please, please.
And he could do it on a lower budget. I think he could bring in something really special without going crazy. I really do.
He could. But my fear at this point is that with the game being in its waning days, I mean, the game will probably be around for maybe 3 more years, I'm guessing.
Depends if they do another expansion, because the Cataclysm expansion was really huge, and so amazing. So if they do something else like that, if they do another major expansion, I think it might keep people going.
All right. Well, that'll do it for our 3 main topics. At this point now, I was going to take a commercial break, but I'm not. I'm just going to push right through. We're going to go right into the next part of the episode here. We're going to play a little game. And we invite you guys. We see you guys are talking about Deathwing is an interesting one.
Deathwing,
Chris,
do that.
Chris Mulgrove writing on the chat boards Deathwing, which would actually be a very, very cool one to do.
I'd also like to propose World of Warcraft dance movie.
Oh yes.
Well, considering there is dancing in the game, that actually
that would work.
That could totally work.
Funny.
Step Up 5 takes place entirely in the World of Warcraft
It's
universe.
happening now. They're working on it.
We're going to play a little game right now that we call Over Under. And here's how it works. Now, these guys, they have a guess as to 1 or 2 of the questions, but they don't know most of the questions I'm going to throw at them. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to throw at them a situation and a number. And they're going to tell me if the number should be over or under. And we're going to start with this one in our first little game of Over Under. Okay, so we know that it has been reported that Robert Downey Jr. made a reported $50 million for the Avengers, while everybody else in the film made either $4 million or $3 million respectively. I believe Samuel Jackson and Black Widow made $4 million. The rest of the cast made $3 million each. Now, I also believe he is coming up to the end of his contract with Marvel, and we all know that Marvel is not a particular big fan of paying big money to their stars if they don't have to. Now, in a recent DVD, in the DVD commentary of the first Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. did make mention of the fact that he's only got a couple of years that he thinks he can do these action films. So here is the question for now. The number is 1. Over or under? The number of films Robert Downey Jr. will appear in as Tony Stark / Iron Man after Iron Man 3. The number is 1. Over or under? Jimmy, let's start with you.
I'm going to be Give him a little. I think maybe over.
You're gonna go over. You think he's
I
gonna
think
do
I'm
more
go
than
over,
one more
yeah.
film?
Just slightly over, yeah.
Now, if his
Yeah.
contract's already up, if this next Iron Man is his last thing, do you think Marvel will sign him to a new deal to do another one?
I think they'd be crazy not to.
Right.
Because face it, he's added a lot of, he brought in the audiences to Iron Man. I think he made a lot of people see it who wouldn't go see it.
Right.
And I think he's just great. He's just great in the role. I think if they were smart, yeah, they'd keep him.
Jenna Busch, over under one
Over.
film that he'll do. Over.
Well, look, here's the thing. When you look at Avengers, I love Avengers, but the moment he walks on screen, it lit everyone else up. It was so obvious that he is the main character. I mean, he just is. Well, not the main character, the main actor. Let's put it that way. There's just something about him that compels you. I think they will pay out, which means he will do more.
Okay, Jen, one. Over or under? How many more times will we see Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark after Iron Man 3?
Are we including cameos?
Sure. Yeah, let's include cameos.
Definitely over. Definitely over. You're right. He might be done carrying entire Iron Man features or having having a huge presence in these movies way down the line. But clearly, Marvel is a booming business. I think they're going to keep going. I think they will pay. ScarJo can take her $4 million or whatever. They will spend money to keep Robert Downey Jr. and to be able to have him liven up all of the press junkets, make appearances, even if it means he's just like sitting on the donut at Randy's Donuts or eating shawarma or something like that. They will need to have him included down the line for many more movies, I think.
All right, and I'm going to go with what I think will happen, not what I think should happen, because in terms of should, I'm going to side with you guys in this. I think they should keep him around, but I don't think they will. I don't even think we're going to see Robert Downey Jr. in Avengers 2. I think Marvel is notorious for not liking to pay a lot. I don't think Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man 3 will be his fourth film as Iron Man. I'm not sure he's super stoked about keeping going with the character. I think, you heard it here first, I'm basing this purely on nothing. Nathan Fillion is going to be your next Tony Stark. I
love him.
And I think Nathan Fillion will be Tony Stark in the next Avengers. Once again, I'm not saying should. I think Robert Downey Jr. should, by law, be required to continue to play Tony Stark Iron Man until the day he dies.
So you're saying you think that Iron Man will definitely be there, only Iron Man will just get a facelift.
Yes, they will have a different guy playing the role.
So it won't even be like a photograph, a publicity photo from the last movie.
Or just Stark
of Robert Downey
Industries.
Jr.
Yeah, no, I think Marvel won't want to pay the money, and I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think he'll want to do more. But let's move on to the.
Wait. I just have to say, if you're going to replace Robert Downey Jr., let it be Nathan Fillion.
I love the idea of Nathan Fillion as Tony Stark. I think he can pull it off.
I second that.
No. All right. Next over-under question. Okay, so we've already talked that Christopher Nolan's Batman is done. There is going to be no more. And I'm sorry, reading a lot of fans, hopefully writing stuff like, oh, now in the next Batman, we're going to see this and this and this. No, folks, Christopher Nolan's Batman is done. So here is the question that I'm going to pose to you guys. Now that Christopher Nolan's Batman, this whole Batman universe that we've seen for a while is over, the number again is 1. The number of years before Warner Brothers makes an official announcement regarding the Batman reboot. Now, that can be who the next director is going to be or who the star of the next Batman's films, but the number is 1. 1 year until Warner Brothers makes an official announcement about a Batman reboot. Jen Yamato, we're going to put you on the spot and start with you.
I feel like, oh, God. I feel like 1 year. I feel like they will wait 1 year.
So you're going to go flat straight on the money.
Is that
with
an
the
option?
over-under. Sure, it's an option. Why not?
All right. Yeah. Yeah, because I don't think they'll wait that long. I think they'll want to keep fans on the hook, and the Blu-ray is going to sustain that audience for a while, months down the line. But I feel like this time next year, I could see that happening. I could see an announcement.
Jenna Busch, over under 1 year.
I have to agree. I give it a year. I really, really hope they don't say reboot. I hope they say start from where we are in the story and go on. But, I don't know. They're going to do it because they reboot everything. But yeah, I'd give it about a year.
Jimmy, over under 1 year.
DVD release. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised because
Don't do it.
I would rather them wait. I would rather. It just seems like, let's let it. Let's enjoy it for a little bit. But Hollywood can't do that. They have to move on. They have to make the money. And yeah, I think one might be pushing it.
And you know what? If it wasn't for how quickly they announced the Spider-Man reboot. I think it was literally within 48 hours that they made the announcement that Sam Raimi was done on Spider-Man, and 48 hours passed to we're rebooting this. I think we're 6 months. I think we're way under one. I think we're 6 months before we hear some kind of an announcement. Now maybe it won't be for another 3 or 4 years that it actually comes out, but I think we're like 6 months until that thing happens. All right, let's go on to the next topic here. This is interesting. Talking about trilogies a little bit earlier, and now we're back on trilogies again.
You have a Three Ninjas question?
Awesome.
Over!
It was announced by the producer of the Rush Hour films. The gentleman's name is Arthur Sarskisian, or Sarskisian. I always mispronounce his name, so you have to forgive me, Arthur, if you're watching this, which I'm sure you are. Now, the producer of the Rush Hour films has come out and said that they are going to do a 4th Rush Hour film. But in talking about it, he also made the comments that he thinks that they really dropped the ball. I'm paraphrasing, but he says he thought Rush Hour 3 was a bad film, that they messed it up. And then he said this. He was asked directly if they would be bringing director Brett Ratner back. And this is what he said. He said, he is more than welcome to come back. And now I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but basically he said, after he said he's more than welcome to come back, but he'd have to be willing to do it right. Over or under, the number is 25%. After hearing that quote, the chances that producer Arthur Sarskin actually wants Brett Ratner back to direct Rush Hour 4. The number is 25%. Over or under. Jimmy, let's start with you.
I don't think he wants him back. That's just, you say that, especially to Brett Ratner. You say that? No way. I don't think he wants him back. I don't know if he should go back to that. I don't even know if they need another Rush Hour. Do we really need one?
Oh, I don't think need is a part of the question here.
Yeah, no, I'd have to go under.
All right, Jenna, what are the chances that the producer actually wants Brett Ratner back?
I'm going to go under as well, because you don't say that, like you said, to Brett Ratner, and then expect him to come. You have to be willing to do it right this time. I know he didn't say this time, but still, like that. If it were me, I'd be like, well, I can't curse, but I would. So under.
We all would.
Yeah.
Jen Yamato.
We'll be cursing after the show's over. Under. Although I will say that is a ballsy, hilarious way of saying, Brett Ratner, you're not really welcome to come back to this franchise because you screwed it up one time too many. It's hilarious.
The funny thing is, I actually, unfortunately, because of his comments, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say under. Yeah. I actually think they should bring him back. I think that only because I think the Rush Hour films, Brett Ratner is a part of the personality of those films. And I for that alone, I think if you're going to do a 4th film, you should bring him back. But when you got the producer saying openly, yeah, messed up the 3rd film, he's more than welcome to come back if he's willing to do it a certain way, that doesn't sound like a big vote of confidence to me. I think they should bring him back. But, yeah, I also think that the chances that they will bring him back are quite under. Now, before we get into our last over-under question, I'm going to ask you guys on the chat board if you have any questions that you would like us to pose and topics that you'd like us to bat around here for a few minutes. Go ahead, jump into the social stream, chat stream there, right beside the video player, and start throwing in your questions, and we'll get to them as much as we can here. So while you guys start thinking of your questions and throw them in the social stream, we're going to get into the last over-under right now. We all know that The Hangover Part 3 is coming next year. Now, you guys sitting at the table, you can't see this, but they released a kind of a promo image for it today. I don't know if you guys had seen it yet. Jenna, you're not. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
It's a picture. It's just a dark silhouette of a howling wolf standing on top of the number and letter H3. That's just their big promotional thing. I actually think it's a wonderful image myself. I think it's quite funny. So The Hangover Part 3 is, of course, coming out next year. Over or under 70%, the chances that The Hangover 3 will be better than The Hangover Part 2. Once again, the number is 70%. Chances that The Hangover Part 3 will be better than The Hangover Part 2. Jen Yamato, let's start
over. How could it not? How could it not be better than Part 2, honestly? I was really disappointed by Hangover 2 because it's very similar to Hangover 1 and just not as good. But I was heartened when the sort of announcement of Hangover 3 came out, because what exotic destination is prime for Todd Phillips style hangover laughs is Tijuana. Oh yes. Tijuana is possibly it's probably the best next location they could have taken this to, and all of my hope lies in Tijuana. So don't
Jenna,
let us down.
70% over.
Like Jen said, how could it not be? If it's really, no, it's over. Over, absolutely. Absolutely.
Jimmy
I also
O.
have hopes in Tijuana.
I'm going over. I'm crazy. I kind of liked Hangover 2. I thought it was fun.
You're crazy.
I'm crazy. But I just love the darkness of it. But that said, yes, I think it's going to be I think it could be really awesome. That's perfect for it. So
I also think I'm going to go with all of you. I think the chances are over. So I'm going to say 99%. And one of the biggest reasons I'm going to say it's over is not just because I thought Hangover 2 was quite a letdown, but because the director himself kind of came out and said, yeah, this is where we made our mistakes. I love it. Because look, every director, Steven Spielberg has had bad days at the office. I love it when a director will sit down and say, we did this wrong, and here's where we did it wrong. Because it makes me believe that they're open to learning and growing, and they're cognizant of what's really going on, and they don't have their own rose-colored glasses on. And I think that is awesome. And because of that alone, I think the possibilities of this film being Hangover Part 3 being much better than Hangover Part 2 are like 99%. Okay, let's get to some of the questions. We got them flying in here. I'm going to drag my microphone over here so I can get at them here. James Gnomes asks, do you think The Expendables 2 overdid it with all the old action stars? Will it be too cheesy? Interesting question, James. James?
Hell no. Hell no. I'm a huge fan. I just, of course it's going to be cheesy. That's the fun. It's a bunch of the biggest guys from the 80s getting together with a few young guys. Just ridiculous. But I think that's kind of fun in that movie. I think it's going to be better than the first. I'm hoping.
Jenna?
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Yes, of course, cheesy. Yes, but isn't that why you're going to see it? I mean, you're going to see it to see all these old guys and how they look and how they still fight. Absolutely.
Jen?
I love that somebody is concerned that Expendables 2 is going to be too cheesy, implying that the first one was not cheesy. If you saw The Expendables and loved it so much that you're worried about the sequel, but did not think that Expendables was cheesy, then you are doing it wrong, I think. So, yeah. I mean, I used to have a t-shirt. It was the best t-shirt that I've ever worn that had just like a lineup. It was like a basketball team lineup of basically the Expendables, the entire cast of Expendables 1 and 2, before the Expendables existed. So Expendables like fulfilled my t-shirt fantasy, I guess, if that makes any sense. This is they cannot possibly overdo it. There's no way, because that's what makes it work to begin with.
All right, we're moving on to the next question. RB Drums Rule.
It's true.
Asks,
they do.
what do you think of the new Man of Steel trailer? I'm going to start with this one. Of course, the new Man of Steel trailer there's two parts to it. There's two trailers. They're both exactly the same. One is narrated by Jor-El, Russell Crowe, and the other one is narrated by Dances with Wolves' Pa Kent. And they are basically, I think these trailers are brilliant because they basically juxtapose the two philosophies that Kal-El, or Superman, is growing up with. One wants him to embrace his destiny to be this heroic, godlike figure leading mankind into the future, and the other just wants him to be a good man. And I think it's brilliant. I love the tone of them. These are just teasers, so we don't want to read too much into them. Personally, I love the new teasers. Jimmy, how about you?
Yeah, no, I'm intrigued. Isn't that what a trailer is supposed to do? Intrigue you? I wasn't blown away. I wasn't. Oh my God, I have to go now. But yeah, it's intriguing. I can't wait to go see it.
Jenna?
Okay, I was on the set, so I'm not allowed to talk about anything I saw. All I'm allowed to say is
read your face.
Yes, read my face. There's a lot there. No, I actually thought the teasers were cool, and everything I saw on the set I thought was really, really cool. I wish I could say what it was, but everything I saw was cool, so I was even probably more intrigued because I know a lot of what I saw and what it means.
Did you get to touch Superman's beard?
I did not, but I did get to touch his suit.
You mean his fisherman suit? Best part of that trailer. Yeah, my two dads is a really great angle to take. But the best thing was watching Clark Kent hiding away on the most dangerous catch. It was like, I love that. It's not something I would have ever thought of, that the idea of Superman holding away, doing this very solitary, activity. Maybe I don't know why. I wasn't on the set. I didn't touch anything on Henry Cavill, but I hope to. And the teasers did get me hooked. I think more than anything, it gave me a little bit more faith in Zack Snyder after Sucker Punch.
Right.
It's much more restrained than I had expected, and maybe that comes from Chris Nolan's involvement. But I thought they were beautiful. They're beautiful.
Yeah. All right, last question we're going to bring in here from the board. Movies and Games asks, was the ending for The Dark Knight Rises a good ending? Now, we want to be careful not to give spoilers away here. Let me throw this out, and I'd love your reaction to what I'm about to say. I thought as an ending to the trilogy, it was great. I didn't like the ending of the movie, but I thought as an ending, the whole movie is fabulous, but I didn't personally like the end of the movie. But that's just my thoughts. Your guys' reactions. Jenna, let's start with you.
I actually agree with you. I did like the way it ended the trilogy. I think that made it so hard not to say
Get
things.
into spoilers, I know.
Yeah,
you know what?
but
Next week's show, sometime, I think we're just going to go into like a whole spoiler-filled discussion about The Dark Knight Rises. Because if you haven't seen it by then, tough. I think we're just going to do a whole spoiler-filled discussion of Dark Knight Rises next week. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, but I mean, as an ending to the film, I wish I could say why, but as an ending to the film, I don't. I agree with you. I just want to say so much.
Tell us everything, Jenna.
Jen, what about you?
I have made no secret of the fact that I was not satisfied with the way that the film ended.
Right.
A lot of that has to do with storytelling choices, I think.
Right.
Rather than thematic choices. And thematically, I feel like it wrapped up the franchise very well, the trilogy very, very well, very emotionally and poignantly.
Jimmy.
I'll be the odd man out here. I did enjoy the ending of the trilogy, absolutely. I liked it a little bit more than you guys did. I felt satisfied. I felt like, okay, I'm good with this. I want to say why. I want to say what really just hit me in the right place. I mean, it was cool, man. It was. Damn it! Sorry.
Earmuffs.
I want to talk more about it, but yes, I was satisfied with it.
You know what? I said that was going to be the last one, but Abar the Car is screaming in the chat boards. What do you think about the Taken 2 trailer? Oh, okay, I'll go with it and I'll start off again. Liam Neeson kicking ass is a movie formula that you just cannot go wrong with. Is this a movie that's needed? No! This is not a needed sequel in any way, shape, or form. Of course not. But are we going to go see it? Yes! Yes, we are. So anyway, that's just my take on the Taken 2 sequel. Throw it open to you. Whichever one of you want to start this off first.
I really loved that Taken 2 trailer, guys. And this actually goes back to what we were saying earlier about trilogies. I think some of the best trilogies are the ones where subsequent sequels build on what's come before. Back to the Future is probably the best example in my mind. In that, I'm not sure that a whole trilogy was mapped out ahead of time, but subsequent sequels did a really good job of building. And I think that's what Taken 2 does, because if you look at it, it's not the same formula. It's not just Liam Neeson kicking behinds.
Right.
It really does give the other characters, the wife character and the daughter character, something to do, and it seems like it's promising a real reversal for Maggie Grace's character, which is very welcome because, yeah.
Jimmy.
Yes, please. I'm fine with it. It's Liam Neeson. Even in bad movies, he looks good. So yes, another take in the trailer. Yes, I'm in. Absolutely.
And I just should throw it here. Chris Tung put in the chat board an Aquaman movie starring Will Ferrell. Sign me up. I'm good to go with that.
Brilliant.
Hey, listen, folks, that'll do it for us. We're going to wrap up this episode here. We're at the 45-minute mark. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank all you guys in the chat board for participating in the conversation. We look forward to doing this. Don't forget, guys, we will be back again on Thursday morning, once again at 11 a.m. Pacific time. That'll be 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here, same bat time, same bat channel. For now, I want to thank our panelists, once again from Movie Line, Miss Jen Yamato.
Thank you.
Cocktails to Stand, Miss Jenna Busch.
Thanks.
Film critic for JoeBlow.com, Mr. Jimmy O. James Oster. James, thank you so much.
Cheers, sir.
Or Miss Jimmy.
Or Miss Jimmy, yeah.
Or Miss Jimmy, as the case may be. Thank you again. And for all you guys, once again, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate your time. Make sure you keep watching the movies, and make sure you keep talking to each other about them. Until next time, my name's John Campia. Bye-bye.